You won't believe how a simple Sunday morning turned my whole world upside down. I'm 61 years old, and most of my life, I thought love was something neat and predictable, like planning for retirement or making Sunday dinners. I raised my son, mostly on my own after the divorce, poured my heart into making a home, being dependable, being safe. I figured if I kept everything tidy and routine, I wouldn't be caught off guard again. But life has this tricky way of timing things. It waits until you've relaxed, until your guard is down, to show you something that shakes everything up. I never thought something like this could happen to me. Please, don't make the same mistake I did. It was a quiet Sunday morning, the kind where you don't rush anywhere, and the sunlight pours through the lace curtains like a soft blanket. I'd just come out of the shower and wrapped myself in a pale blue robe, faded from years of washing, but still my favorite. The bathroom mirror was fogged up, so I used the edge of my palm to clear a little circle and caught a glimpse of myself. I looked tired, not just from lack of sleep, but the kind of tired that settles into your eyes after years of being everything to everyone. I was patting my face dry when I heard a knock, not loud, gentle, almost hesitant. "Mum," came his voice, my son's, Jake. He wasn't supposed to be home yet. He texted me the night before saying he might swing by to drop off my garden tools. But I figured he meant sometime in the afternoon, not 9:30 a.m. "Just a minute," I called out, heart skipping for no reason I could name. I tightened my robe and opened the door a crack. His face was there, grown kind, that slight scruff on his chin like his father used to have when he forgot to shave. "Hey," he said, eyes scanning me quickly like he was checking if I was okay. "You got a minute?" I opened the door all the way. "Of course. What's wrong?" He shrugged, stepping back into the hallway. "Nothing's wrong. I was in the neighborhood earlier than I thought and figured I'd bring the tools before I forgot again." But there was something in his eyes. Not wrong exactly, but different, focused, intense in a way I hadn't seen since he was a teenager trying to explain why he crashed his bike or stayed out too late. I followed him down the hall in silence, DMP hair clinging to the nape of my neck. He set the small crate of gardening tools on the kitchen table like it was something fragile. Then he just stood there, shifting on his feet. "Jake," I said softly, "what's going on?" He didn't look at me, just rubbed his jaw and exhaled. "I had a dream last night about Dad. That made my breath catch." "Oh," I said, keeping my tone careful. It wasn't often he brought up his father. They'd reconciled a bit before his dad passed, but Jake never talked much about it. "Yeah, it was weird. We were in the old house, and he was in the backyard. He looked younger than I ever remember him being." Jake finally looked up, his eyes glassy, and he said something to me. He said, "Tell your mom the truth." I blinked. "The truth about what?" Jake sat down, elbows on the table, and stared at the wood grain like it held all the answers. "I don't know," he whispered, but I woke up and felt like I needed to talk. "To you. I've been carrying this thing, this feeling I don't understand, and I thought maybe if I came over, if I saw you, it might make sense." I sat down across from him, my robe still damp at the collar, and reached out, placing my hand gently over his. "Jake, you can tell me anything." He flinched, like even the kindness was too much. "I don't even know how to start," he said, his voice cracking. "It's not bad, Mom, I swear, but it's strange. It's made me question a lot." A silence settled between us, soft and weighted, the kind that makes the fridge hum louder and the tick of the clock feel like a drum. Then he looked up, really looked at me. "When you were younger," he said slowly, "before Dad, did you ever feel like there was a version of you that never got to exist? Someone freer, maybe. Someone who didn't always have to be the strong one. I felt something stir in my chest. A warmth, a sadness. All the time, I admitted. His eyes softened. I think that's what I saw in the dream you. Not the mom version, just you. I couldn't speak for a moment. There was something about the way he said it. The gentleness, the attention. It wasn't romantic. No, that wasn't it. But it was intimate. Deeply so, like he was seeing me for the first time. Not as the person who packed his lunch or signed his permission slips, but as a woman, as a whole person. I want to know that version of you, Jake said. If you'd let me. Something in the room shifted, not dangerous, not wrong, but powerful and so very unexpected. I swallowed, my fingers tightening slightly over his hand. The sunlight had shifted, casting stripes of gold across the table, and the air felt thick, with something unspoken. I don't know where to start, I whispered. He smiled, small and sad. Maybe just by letting me stay for coffee, and so I did. I got up quietly, filled the kettle, and tried to ignore the way my hands trembled just slightly. As I moved, because for the first time in years I didn't feel like someone's mother. I felt like someone. Jake stayed for hours. What started as coffee turned into toast, and toast turned into pulling out an old photo album from the credenza in the living room. He followed me in there with his mug, and I noticed the way he lingered near the mantel, eyeing the family pictures. He picked one up me in my 30s, holding him as a baby, cheeks full and eyes tired. I don't remember you ever looking like this, he said quietly. I sat down on the edge of the couch, smoothing my robe across my legs. I barely remember it myself. He put the photo down carefully, like it might crumble, and joined me. We opened the album together. It smelled faintly of dust and lavender, and as we turned the pages, my heart pulled in all directions, nostalgia, loss, pride, regret. You were beautiful, he said after a moment, eyes scanning a picture of me in a sundress, laughing at something his father had said back when things still worked. I felt my cheeks flush. That was a long time ago. He looked at me then, eyes firm. It still matters. I didn't know how to respond to that. I wasn't used to being seen that way anymore, especially not by my own son, who had only ever known me as Mom, the reliable one, the woman who never broke even when everything else around her did. I guess I buried a lot of myself, I said finally. I thought that was what mothers were supposed to do, be the rock. Jake reached over and touched my hand. His was warm, steady. But what if you didn't have to be the rock anymore? That question unsettled something in me. We sat in silence after that, the kind that's more comfortable than words. I don't know how long we stayed like that, but at some point, he leaned back into the couch, legs stretched, fingers laced behind his head. You know, he said casually, when I was a kid, I used to think you were magic. That made me laugh, a soft, surprised sound. Magic? Yeah, you always seemed to know everything. You knew when I was lying, when I was hungry, when I was about to cry. You could fix things. Busted knees, broken toys, bad dreams, like you had powers or something. I felt something tender crack open in me. I did my best, I said, voice low. But I lost myself a little along the way. Jake sat up again, leaning forward, elbows on his knees. You know what's strange? He said, eyes on the carpet. When I knocked on the bathroom door this morning, I almost walked away. Why? I asked. I don't know, he said. Maybe because I was scared you'd look at me and see the little boy again, not the man who came to tell you something honest. I searched his face. You didn't finish your thought earlier. What is it you've been carrying? He rubbed his palms together, took a breath. It's not one thing. It's more like, I've been feeling so far from everything lately, my job, my friends, even women I've dated. It all feels hollow. And I realized the only place I've ever felt completely safe, completely seen, is here, with you. That hit me deeper than I expected. I know that might sound weird, he said, rushing the words. I'm not saying it to make you uncomfortable. But when I see you now, I realize I never really saw you before. You've always been this fixture in my life, but now you're, I don't know, real. More than a mama person. And that makes me want to know you differently. There was something so sincere in his tone. Something open, raw. I found myself brushing a strand of damp hair behind my ear and looking down at my hands, now resting in my lap. I don't know if I even remember who that person is, I admitted. The one who existed before motherhood. Jake's voice dropped to a whisper then. Maybe we can figure it out together. I looked at him then, not as my son, not as the boy I'd raised and worried over and sacrificed for, but as a man with kindness in his eyes and truth in his words, a man who somehow had brought something out of me that I thought was long gone. The kettle whistled from the kitchen, startling us both. I stood slowly and walked toward it. My reflection in the window caught my eye as I passed hair loose. Robe still clinging, cheeks slightly flushed. I didn't recognize that woman fully. But maybe that was the point. Maybe I was just beginning to. That night, I couldn't sleep. The house was still. Too still. The kind of quiet that makes your thoughts echo louder than they should. I lay in bed with the lamp on, staring at the ceiling, fingers resting on my chest as if to keep my heart from drifting out of me. Jake had left around 6, after helping me clear the dishes from our late lunch. He hugged me tighter than usual before stepping out onto the porch, pausing for a moment like he wanted to say more but decided against it. The air between us had shifted, subtle, unspoken, but real, and I wasn't sure what to do with it. I kept thinking about his words, the way he said he wanted to know me, not as his mother but as me. It stirred something buried so deep I hadn't touched it in decades. At around 2 a.m., I got up and wandered barefoot into the kitchen. I poured myself a glass of water and leaned against the counter, staring out into the darkness beyond the window. The backyard looked eerie in the moonlight, familiar but strange, like my reflection had become. My phone buzzed on the counter, startling me. Jake, are you awake? I stared at the screen, heart suddenly hammering in my chest. I don't know why. Maybe it was the timing. Maybe it was everything left unsaid. Me. Yeah, couldn't sleep. His reply came almost immediately. Jake. Me neither. Can I come over? I hesitated just for a second then. Me. Doors unlocked. 10 minutes later, he was standing in my kitchen, his hoodie zipped halfway up, hair tousled like he'd been tossing in bed. I didn't mean to bother you, he said, voice low, almost apologetic. I just ... I couldn't stop thinking. I motioned to the table. Sit. Talk. He did, folding his hands in front of him like he needed to keep them busy. I sat across from him again, the same way we had that morning, only now the world was asleep, and the hush around us made it all feel more vulnerable. I know I'm crossing some kind of invisible line, he began. I feel it. There's something about today that made everything inside me shift. It's like I've been walking through fog, and today you cleared it. I swallowed hard. You're not the only one who felt it. That caught him off guard. His eyes met mine and stayed there. I've lived a very careful life, I continued. After your father left, I built these walls around myself: routine, purpose, control. I told myself that was strength, that not needing anyone was safer. Jake nodded slowly. I get that. I've done the same thing in my own way. But when I'm around you lately, I feel like I'm finally breathing. The words landed heavy, right in the center of me. I don't know what to do with all this. I admitted. He leaned in slightly, not too close, but just enough for me to feel the warmth of his presence. Maybe we don't do anything right now. Maybe we just sit with it. Let it be what it is. Silence again, but not the awkward kind. It felt still, sacred even. Do you remember when I got sick in middle school? He asked suddenly, the memory surfacing like a ghost. You had the flu so bad I had to sleep on the floor next to your bed. He smiled. I remember waking up and you were holding my hand. You looked exhausted, but you were right there. You always were. I looked down at my hands again, older now, with lines and spots and memories etched into them. I guess I've spent my life giving, I said softly, and I never once thought I'd be the one who needed something back. You deserve more than what you've settled for, Jake said, his voice quiet but firm. A lump rose in my throat. I blinked it back and stood up, needing to move. I should probably get some rest, I said, more to the air than to him. But as I turned to walk toward the hallway, I paused. My fingers touched the door frame, and I turned halfway back to him. You can stay, I said, almost a whisper, if you want. Jake stood up slowly, not assuming, not rushing. Where? I nodded toward the guest room. You know where. He walked past me, slow and deliberate. When he reached the hallway, he paused beside me, just close enough for the heat of his body to brush against mine. Good night, Mom, he said softly. I turned my face up toward him. Good night, Jake. And then he disappeared down the hall, the guest room door clicking shut behind him. I stood there for a long time, the hallway dim, my robe brushing against my bare ankles, the air thick with something I hadn't felt in years. Longing, confusion, hope. I returned to bed, lay down, and closed my eyes, but sleep didn't come. Only the memory of his eyes and the quiet storm beginning in my chest. The next morning came in soft and grey, with clouds pressing low, and a cool breeze drifting in through the cracked kitchen window. I hadn't slept much, just dozed here and there, thoughts moving in circles, always returning to the same place. When I stepped out of my bedroom, the guest room door was still closed. I made coffee slowly, intentionally. My hands moved through the motions, but my mind was somewhere else, trapped in the things that had been said and the things that hadn't. By the time I poured my second cup, I heard the creak of a door. Jake stepped out into the hallway, wearing the same hoodie, but his expression had softened. He looked rested in a way I hadn't seen before. Maybe not from sleep, but from having finally let go of something heavy. He gave me a shy smile. Morning. Coffee's fresh, I said. He walked over, poured himself a cup, and stood across from me at the counter. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The silence had changed again. Now it was filled with questions. Finally, I broke it. Did you sleep okay? He nodded. Yeah, better than I expected. I sipped from my mug and studied his face. Jake, about everything we said yesterday. I've been thinking. Me too, he interrupted gently. And I think we need to talk. Really talk, with no fog, no fear, no pretending. I braced myself, heart tightening. Okay, he took a breath. I don't want to confuse you. I'm not here to shake up your life, just to make sense of mine. But yesterday and last night, it made me realize something. What's that? I've been searching for connection in all the wrong places, dating women who felt like strangers, chasing approval from a father who's gone. But with you, I feel something honest, something rare, and it scares the hell out of me. His voice cracked a little at the end. I set my cup down and stepped closer. I know exactly what you mean, I said. But this, whatever it is between us, it's tender. It needs care, not rushing, not labeling, just truth. Jake nodded, his eyes meeting mine. Then let's be honest all the way. I stood still, every part of me aware of the moment, of how his presence changed the air, of how I didn't feel like the woman who folded laundry and paid bills. I felt seen, not as a mother, not as an old habit, as a woman. I miss being known. I whispered, the real me, not the role, not the duty, just me. He took my hand, just held it, not with expectation, but with understanding. I'd like to get to know that woman, he said, if she let me. The wind outside picked up, rustling the leaves in the backyard. A storm was coming, but inside, everything was calm. I'm scared, I admitted. Me too. We stood in the kitchen, morning light painting faint silver across the tiles, holding something fragile between us. It wasn't about right or wrong. It wasn't even about answers. It was about honesty, vulnerability, and a quiet, aching need to be understood. Jake squeezed my hand once, then let go. Let's take it one day at a time, he said, and I nodded. He stayed for breakfast. We made scrambled eggs and sat side by side at the table, talking about nothing and everything. Laughter came easier than I expected. The tension softened into something warm, quiet, and real. Later, when he left, he kissed my cheek, soft, lingering, not quite a son's kiss, not quite anything else, just a promise. As the door closed behind him, I stood in the hallway, alone, but I didn't feel lonely. I walked back into the kitchen, picked up my cup, and looked out the window. The garden needed tending. The sky was starting to clear, and somewhere inside me, something had begun to bloom.